My second lesson, or my second series of lessons, would deal with the God of history. The Reform community years ago decided that there was no such thing as a God of history, because God did not intervene in the Holocaust or any other of the tragedies that happened and befell our people. How silly or narrow-minded could this be? I know that our people have been brutalized horribly over the centuries by Christianity, by Islam, and by many other groups of people. But how can you say that there is no God of history? All of the ancient empires, the Hittites, the Phoenicians, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks and the Romans, the Mongols, the Holy Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Caliphates, the Ottoman Empire. All of the great empires of the past have all disappeared. I know that Putin is trying to reinstitute the Russian Empire. But the Russian Empire is just a shadow of itself compared to the strength, the world power that it had just 30 plus years ago. We were afraid of Russia. We're no longer afraid of Russia. We're afraid of China. We're afraid of the mullahs in Iran. We're afraid of the crazy guy in North Korea, what he can do. But we're not afraid of the Russians anymore. Why aren't we afraid of the Russians? Not because they've grown irrelevant, but because they have waned. They're no longer the power that people had. They're no longer the kind of group, the kind of force that got people to shiver in their pants. I know Putin would like to change that. But given what has happened in Ukraine, has just put the nail in the coffin on the fear that people have for him. They don't fear him anymore. Yeah, he can cause a lot of deaths, but at what cost? If you go ahead and obliterate Ukraine, you obliterate what Ukraine has, the natural resources that Ukraine has. You obliterate the people who are close to you, basically. The Ukrainians and the Russians are basically the same Slavic group, except that they have different geographic locations and different aspirations. The Russians, if they were given freedom, would probably have similar aspirations as the Ukrainians. But Russia is no longer a great empire. And China also will no longer be a great empire. It's going to collapse just like the Russians collapsed. You cannot have control over the mind of people when people have broad horizons and they can see what's going on. I don't care. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are completely convinced of the superiority of socialism to capitalism. But capitalism works better than socialism. It always has and always will. The attempt by China to go ahead and overtake the United States, not laughable. Certainly, they try, and there are a lot more people, so their economy should be bigger. And their people are very, very industrious, and they're brilliant. But the fact is, they have not created wealth for the entire Chinese population. There are middle-class Chinese, there are wealthy Chinese. But there's dirt poor Chinese, they're the majority. And they're abusive. They abuse other people. The system of communism will collapse. It has to collapse because it is a lie. It's an attractive idea based on a lie. And a lot of lies. So the great empires of the past have all collapsed. The United States will collapse. How do I know this? I don't know this for sure, but the United States is collapsing right in front of us. By disrupting the unity of the people, by making people angry at each other and attacking each other, you destroy the community, you destroy the culture of the people. So the United States, when they have groups of people that are at each other's throats, or attacking each other, or unhappy with each other, angry with each other, when you do that, you upset the unity, the rhythm of the country. So the United States empire ultimately will collapse as well. Maybe not in our lifetime, but somewhere down the line it will. They will break up into different geographic areas. The coasts will be socialist. Center will be capitalists and laissez-faire people. There'll be 3 or 4 countries out of the United States. And maybe Mexico will take over some of that country. We'll see what happens. But the country ultimately will collapse because there is no unity in the country. That being said, all of the evil empires that preceded ours, and I include in this the British Empire. The British Empire was not based upon humanity. It was based upon the superiority of the English. The belief that the white man, specifically the Englishman, was superior to all others, and all others should serve the interests of the white man out of England. That's not a racist statement. If England were black, if England were purple, they would still be chauvinistic. They would still be totally absorbed with their own position. The English Empire was not an empire that was good. It was an opportunist empire, an empire that came about by resourceful people, people who wanted to develop their country, wanted to develop the power of the crown, who were loyal to the crown, to the king, or to the queen. But at the end of the day, it was a colonial empire that enslaved other people, that used other people to serve it. That is not a good empire. A good empire works for the good of all of the inhabitants. That's the definition of a good empire and a good king. That didn't exist under England, no matter how humanitarian they thought themselves to be. Otherwise, why would the Indians rebel? Why did Mahatma Gandhi rebel against the English? The answer is because they weren't so nice. And they were taking the wealth of the country for themselves and keeping the people impoverished. And that's what they did in China, and that's what they did in Africa, and that's what they did in all the places which was under the English flag, the English crown. And the English Empire collapsed right after its greatest victory in World War II. And so if you look at the God of history, is there a God of history? The answer is yes. All of the ancient empires that are evil, whether overtly evil, covertly evil, selfishness is also an evil, all of them collapsed. All the ancient that abused the Jews collapse, don't exist anymore. And the Jews are still existing. And guess what? In about 10 years, most of them will be living in the ancient land of theirs called the land of Israel. How do you like that? They have returned to the land of Israel, and the majority of the Jews in the world will live there, and they are an economic power. They're also an industrial powerhouse. And God has given them incredible wealth, not just because of their smarts. They got a lot of gas. They will be able to use that to develop their country even more. And they're not just receiving from the United States, they're now creating new systems for defense and new systems of weaponry. The Israeli Iron Dome will pale compared to the new shield that it has that is developing based upon lasers. It will destroy 99.9% of all incoming missiles, to the point where it can export the defense system so that no nation will fear the missiles of its enemies. Of course, they'll have to keep on redeveloping new technologies so that they can't go around the technology of defense. But what the Israeli people are creating today is a strong society. How did that happen if there isn't a God? By itself? Are Jews cockroaches like Hitler declared us to be? If that's the case, how do we create a country that is economically advanced, scientifically advanced, morally advanced? In fact, in a short while, the majority of the Jewish people living in Israel will not be secular. They will be religious people. Does that also fall into the hand of God? God wanting the Jewish people to be a light to other nations, telling the nation that there is a creator of the universe, whom we all believe in, because we talked about this at the last year. We all believe in an original cause. The God that created us is also the God of history. The third question is that'll come next.